Welcome to Impact OC, the only program showcasing the people and organizations shaping Orange County. With your host, Don Camber.
Hello, live from the OC Talk Radio studios at UCI's Beal Applied Innovation Center. I'm OC Talk Radio Public Affairs Director Don Camber with another great guest positively impacting our community. Today I welcome SPIN OC Executive Director David Wetzel. SPIN stands for Serving People in Need. Its mission is to restore Orange County's families and individuals in crisis to self-sufficiency. Thank you, David, for being on Impact OC.
I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
David, please share with us the kinds of crises families and individuals experience so that you can help them and restore them to self-sufficiency.
Well, I don't think you have to look far to find the folks that we help out. If you walk down the street in any downtown area, in any city in our county, you're going to see folks in sleeping bags, under overpasses, pushing shopping carts around. And these are folks that really are looking for the type of help that we provide. They're folks that really need some support, some guidance. And for the most part, they're folks who really want to change their lives. And so that's what we try and help them do.
So the demographics of the people you help are the people who live on the streets?
We focus on families with children, but they come from all over the place. We work with folks who are living in their car. We match with people who are living in shelters. And yeah, we have folks who come straight off the street. We work through the coordinated entry system in Orange County. And those folks reach out to either us or organizations like us. And we try and find a way to get them the housing that they need and provide them the support they need so that ultimately they don't need us anymore.
How do you do that?
It starts out with working with the continuum of care. In Orange County, there's a group of folks who do this for a living. We have a matching system through the coordinated entry system. Folks reach out to different organizations. They're put into basically a giant list. And depending on the needs that they have, they're matched with different organizations. So each week we have case managers, and the case managers attend a call and look through that list and try and find folks that match to our services. We pair them up with a case manager. They try and find them affordable housing. And once we do that, we work with them for typically between 4 and 12 months. We sign a one-year lease with them. We sign a one-year lease, and then we spend that time working with them on income generation, on shoring up their credit report, on budgeting, on basic needs, healthcare, dental. And like I say, hopefully by the time that we're through, by the time that we've graduated them, they are independent, they're able to live on their own, they're able to afford their rent, and they're stable.
So what you just told me was that there's a variety of organizations that have specific services that they provide. Does that mean that we're not going to see too many doubling up of services provided by different organizations?
No, the need is far greater than the resources available. So if, for instance, we work with families only. So we work with families with dependent children. And there's a list that we work off of, and we will typically place about 50 families a year. So, 4 or 5 families a month. That list is about 200 to 400 families long. So no, there's no duplication of services. If anything, there's a need for more.
How do you select who you help?
It's through a prioritization process. It's typically based on folks who have the greatest need, who maybe have a disabling condition, and who have been homeless the longest, who have not been housed for the longest amount of time.
Which would mean that they were either living in their car or living on the street.
Or living in a shelter, yes. And these are folks who, often wait months and months to get approved for the services that we provide.
Now, does it have to be a daddy and a mom and kids, or can it be a single parent with kids?
We have everything. Any type of family. We have, moms, single fathers. We have partners. Any family that has minor children, we will work with them.
So Go through what it's like to get your services from the beginning to when they're finally placed in a home.
So, as I said, the need is typically greater than the resources available. So they'll reach out to some organization. 211OC is probably the most common one. They're kind of what they call a virtual front door, but they can call any of us. We have 2 family services navigators who accept about 2,800 calls a year from people who are in need. We enter those folks into a database. That database is what's used during what we call our matching process. So our case managers will get on the phone and computer once a week, and we'll look through that list and see if there's anybody that matches what we have. And then from there, we match them with their case manager. They meet with them. They walk through all of the kind of paperwork that's involved. But most importantly, they provide a sympathetic ear and try and provide help. From there, we'll look around for landlords with affordable housing. We'll try and find one that is suitable for this family. We'll match them up with that landlord, and then we pay the rent for somewhere between 4 months and 12 months. We have them sign a lease, and perhaps, and that's the theory is that once you get someone housed and stable, they can put their lives back together, right? People come from all types of situations, and once you have a place to live, once you have a place to kind of call home and sit down and clear your mind, that's when the work really begins. So we have wonderful case managers who meet with them on a very regular basis, and they start out with the basics. How's your health? How's your mental health? Do you have everything you need? Do you have food, clothing? Do you have beds, furniture? Once we get past the basic needs, they'll spend time really working with them on how to create a sustainable life. So how's your budget? What's your income like? Are there other jobs or career aspirations that you have that we can help you with? How do we help you shore up your credit score so that you can do things like afford transportation, buy a car? We'll work with them for, like I say, typically about 6 months. But really it's targeted around getting them to a place where they feel like they have their feet planted, they feel stable, that they're able to afford the place that they live in, and then we happily shake their hand and let them go on their way.
What are the situations that lead them to you?
Oh, you can imagine, right? Probably a front of mind story for me is one that we just had our annual fundraiser in October, and we honored a woman, and I'll call her Jenny. And this is a woman who was kicked out of her home at a very young age, who lived on the streets, who went through foster care, who ultimately ended up with substance abuse, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, was pushed into sex trafficking, and really lost her youth. When she made the decision, to turn her life around, she reached out to one of the organizations like us. It was actually Colette's Home. And by that time she had children. So she has 3 daughters. They took her in. She went through a 12-step program. She was able to shake her substance abuse. She stabilized her life, and that's when she was matched with us. And we helped her find housing. She got a job. She went back to school. She's one, and I can picture her face, frankly. She's a woman that now has the life that she had dreamed of for so very long. Her children have a home to live in. She's able to spend time with them, tutoring them in school. She's going to school herself, trying to get a college degree. So that's the type of folks that we try to help, and that's the type of help that we try to provide.
Affordable housing. How are you able to find it, and what is affordable housing?
That's a great question. A lot of people are under the misconception, in Orange County in particular, that the number 1 and 2 causes for homelessness are drug abuse or substance abuse and mental illness. Actually, the number 1 cause for homelessness in Orange County is affordability. So we partner with a big group of landlords. They are relationships. We've been in business now for over 30 years, almost 40. So we partner with a group of landlords who have properties that are affordable. They certainly aren't the Hyatt, but they're good, safe, clean places to live. We've got long-term relationships with them, and the landlord has a sense of security that we're the backstop for the tenant, and so we try and work with that group, and that's the part of the magic that the case managers pull off is they have these groups of folks that they work with. They will hunt and peck around until they find a suitable place to live. Of course, part of it oftentimes is geography, where the family wants or needs to live, where their children go to school. And they'll match them up and they'll get them moved in. We do an inspection every single time on the apartment or the home to make sure that it's safe and it's clean, and we help them move in. And we'll fill their cupboards with groceries, and we will buy furniture, and we will set them up so that they have a reasonable house.
Can they stay in that home even when they're on their own?
They do. Like I said, they sign a year-long lease when we sign them on. When we work with the landlords, our success rate is really quite high. So I was looking through statistics. We're putting together our statistics for last year, and I believe we were about 96% effective. So about 96% of all of the families that we housed were still housed when they were graduated from us.
So you're helping them, but what do they need to do for you?
Really, part of this, right, is that they have the will to change their life. And the good news for us is by the time we are exposed to folks, typically they are ready. They are ready. And you can imagine if you have if you have small children, they're very ready. They want to make sure that their children oftentimes don't have to live through some of the things that they had to live through. So they need to be ready. They need to be mentally ready and committed to really changing their lives. And the woman I was just speaking about, she was absolutely convinced that she had to do this, and I think rightfully so. And then they need to be open to taking the steps that get them there, right? To being disciplined about their budget, to being a good tenant, to starting to look at what got them into the situation they were in the first place, and what will keep them from ever going back there.
So what about your staff to help them?
The staff, the case managers, are you asking? The case managers spend a lot of time. That's how they spend almost all of their time, really, is on one-on-one coaching. Actually, sometimes one-on-one, sometimes couples, sometimes the whole family. But that's how they spend their time. And it's really a needs assessment, and then trying to either provide them or refer them to the resources that they need to get what they need to get to be able to sustain a happy and stable life.
So they may go back to that list of different organizations and get the help that the other organizations can provide, so that there's no doubling up, but they get what they need.
They absolutely. There's an entire network in the county of different organizations who do different things. So yes, we have referrals for family planning, financial planning, whatever it is that the individuals need. It's very situational, right? And again, that's the magic of the case managers. When they sit down with the family, they really try and assess first. So they're excellent listeners. They sit down and try and hear what's going on with the family, try and figure out what it is that they need the most. And then, either whether we provide it or there's a whole network of organizations that support us will provide it, we will refer them to different organizations. We also have partnerships with medical doctors, with vision, with dental care, and these are gracious and generous folks in our community who perform services at a very modest, if any, expense. They're also often donors to our cause. And so we'll try and get them healthy and stable and thinking in the right direction and figuring out what they need to do to like I say, put this in their rearview mirror and live a happy life.
Now, these homeless people, do they necessarily have phones so that they can be reached?
Most of them do. You'd be surprised at how many people have a phone. But we make personal appointments. They reach us by a myriad of ways. They might go to the library and go through a website. They might call us or one of the other organizations in our network. Oftentimes, excuse me, they'll show up at our door and just knock and say, "Hey, can I make an appointment? And who can I talk to?"
And if you're not helping them, likely they're living on the street.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we are literally pulling people out of their car. I mean, and you know, when you there are a group of shelters that focus on families in Orange County as well, and that's probably where most of the folks that we get referred to. That's where most of them come from. Is they'll be in temporary shelters with their family, and they're trying to find a place to call home.
How do they live in shelters? How do they live in their cars? How do they live on the street?
I was involved in the pointed time count about a year and a half ago, and what this is that they garner an army of volunteers, and that army of volunteers over 2 nights goes out and they try and find and count every homeless person and family in the county, in every city in the county. And I volunteered on that and spent a full night just kind of walking around, and it was amazing to me. I live in a very nice community. I live in Laguna Niguel, and that was the community that I wandered, and it was very eye-opening to find out what I didn't know. That I can remember clearly going down a commercial avenue, and it was lined with cars and RVs of people who that's how they lived. That was their home, and there were probably on that street, I would say there were probably 20 or 30 of them. That's their house. That's what they do. So I honestly don't know how they find the will to keep their chin up and keep trying when it's really a tough fight for a lot of folks, for a lot of different reasons, right? And people find themselves in that situation for all kinds of reasons. But it's very eye-opening, and it's also eye-opening to get to know folks and understand that for the most part, just like everybody in this world, people want to do the right thing. They want to live a good life. They want to be a good citizen, a good steward. They want to be a good parent. And our job is to help them find that.
How are you able to help the children who are in this situation?
Well, I think the most important part, right, is housing first and housing fast. So we really work hard to, once we're matched with a family, we really work hard. We try and put a fuse of 30 days on once we're introduced to them and once they're, kind of interviewed by the case manager. We try within a month to get them into a place to live. And so in terms of the kids, I think that's probably the most important part, is to feel like they have a place to go home to, right? And again, I think that's where a lot of life starts and ends, is when you get home, right? You leave the house in the morning and you're happy and secure, and you come home at night, hopefully, and again, you feel like you have a place to put your feet up, a place that you feel comfortable, that you feel confident, that you feel loved, and that you feel safe. And so, I mean, I don't think, when I think about the kids that we try to help, I think that above everything is success.
And then you figure a plan for success for the parents to be able to afford to live in that home and beyond.
That's right. So we'll spend a lot of time. Certainly, one thing that our case managers do pretty much every meeting is budgeting. So we look at income, we look at expenses, we try and figure out the math, old-fashioned, write it down, and how much money do you spend on your stuff and how much money do you make. And then once they've got a handle on that, then oftentimes it's trying to focus on credit improvement and income generation. So where are you at in your job or career? Do you have a job or career, first of all? And if you don't, let us help you. And we partner with groups like Working Wardrobes and different community groups to help set them up to go out and get a job. And if they do, then what's the next step in your career, and how can you improve your income? I mean, a living wage for a single person in Orange County is well above $30 an hour. And if Obviously, there's a lot of folks in this county who do not come close to that. And, if you're making $25 an hour and you want to rent a place in Orange County, that's pretty much everything. That's it. After taxes, you're probably paying everything you have just to get a place to live. Doesn't include your car, your utilities, your food, your entertainment, your meals. So we work hard to try and help them identify ways that they can increase their income and get to a living wage. And those are probably two of the primary efforts that we have. But there's all that ancillary stuff that can get in the way of that, right? If you're not feeling well, if you have vision problems, there's so many things that kind of go into answering that question of how do I take the next step, that we try and address those as well.
How are you funded?
We're funded about a third through HUD, Housing and Urban Development, through what they call the COC, the Continuum of Care here in Orange County. And about 2/3, probably another maybe 20% is grants, private grants, so foundations, people who are, and groups who are very generous. And then about a third of our funding is private donations. It's people who care about this issue and people who want to see us working on this and who open up their wallets generously and give graciously.
How did the name be created?
That's a good question. So this group was actually started in 1987 by a gentleman named Sam Boyce. And Sam started at a church in Newport Beach, and it was a men's group. And what they did was they just started walking out on the streets with meals, clothing, blankets, and taking those to folks who lived on the street. The original name was Street People in Need. And so he and a group of men would go out every week, and they'd walk the streets down along the coast, and they try and help people who needed help. And over the years, they would have conversations and try and understand how folks got into the situation they were in, living on the street. And that evolved into the programs that, we initially had a substance abuse program, but it evolved into the programs that we have today to help folks stabilize and find a place to live so that they can live the rest of their lives. So Sam was the man who actually named the organization years ago, and that name evolved shortly after.
What's the reaction of people you've helped?
Unbelievable. Sorry.
It's okay.
I've heard people walking out of our building calling our case managers angels, saviors. That's obviously pretty generous, but I think the meaning that they have to the people that we serve is incredible, and that comes through every day for me in every conversation I see. And even, when we're counseling families and they come in and they're going through a rough patch or they're trying to overcome an obstacle, the word that comes to mind is gratitude. That's pretty much all I ever feel, thankfully, right? That's pretty much what I feel every single day when I watch this.
We have a lot of homeless people in Orange County, and many times they're hidden. But when you see them, how should people view them?
I've heard the paraphrase of a saying 100 times is there's many, many people in this county who are one paycheck away from being homeless. So, and I think most folks can see that. Most folks have experienced it in some form or another. And I think you need to think about this with grace, right? You really need to be thinking about the fact that these are folks who are struggling, that they're faced with challenges that some of us have overcome and many of us will never experience. And I think to have that in your mind when you're viewing somebody who you see on the street, and just have that sense that the best thing that you can do to overcome a challenge like this is to help. And you can help in 1,000 ways. You can help by referring them to organizations like us. You can help by volunteering at different groups, a food pantry or a volunteer organization or a children's home. You can help by donating, of course, and our donation button is right there on our spinoc.org website. But that's, I think, when to answer your question directly, how should you react to someone you see on the street? That's how you should react. You should think, what can I do, whether it's tiny or giant? What can I do to help change the situation for this person and for every person that's like them?
With your organization, how can people volunteer?
We have a street service, the evolution of what Sam Boyce started in 1987. Every week we have a street service. We run it out of that same church, Our Lady Queen of Angels in Newport Beach, and we make about 200 sack lunches, and we deliver them every week to local shelters. So that's certainly one way that they can help. We have a food pantry on site. It's very modest, but that's how we help our client families. So each time they come in, we also offer up the food pantry so they can take some groceries home. So volunteering at our food pantry or any food pantry, there's several of them, South County Outreach, Illumination Foundation. There's groups all over this county who are longing and looking for people to volunteer, families forward. If you want to help, you have but to do a Google search, and you can probably find 100 ways to contribute, whether that's your time, your treasure, your talent. Any of those things will make a difference.
And when people do, how do they feel afterwards?
So we just went through the holidays, right? And one of the events we do is a sponsorship. So we have volunteer groups who put together during Thanksgiving baskets, right? So they'll put together a whole meal and some gift cards so they can buy a turkey. And it's amazing to me how joyful it is and how anxious folks are to really see that, to experience it, to be able to do something that they know is going to benefit somebody in such a significant way. And we do it for Thanksgiving, we do it for Easter, we do it for the holidays. We have probably 4 or 5 of those events. And I'm always surprised and shocked at how anxious folks are to be involved. We have a school drive for backpacks, and we have a group that's been doing that for 20 years. And every year, I don't have to call them. They call us. And when we're getting around August, we get the phone call and say, okay, we're ready, and how many do you need? And in that sense, we don't do much with that. They do it. They secure the supplies, they secure the backpacks, they stuff them, they bring. I showed up at the office in September, and there were 75 backpacks sitting in the hallway waiting for students to come pick up. The folks who do the volunteer work and the folks who contribute in that way, I think, find it very meaningful and very rewarding, and probably, sleep a little bit happier at night.
What did you learn from the organization?
Oh, wow. That part of what I've learned so far is how big the issue is. We look at kind of a family count on a regular basis. And like I said, we, in any given month, all of the organizations who do this for families in our Central Orange County service area probably are able to address maybe a dozen families, and the list is between 200 and 400 families long. So that's what keeps me motivated, but it's also what keeps me concerned. The other thing that I've learned is that the problem is growing. We went through COVID, and there was a lot of federal assistance, and there was certainly a lot of homelessness during during the pandemic. I think a general expectation or hope when we came out of that was that it would settle down, right? And that things would get better, and that it would be easier. And in fact, it's gone the other way. So, and I just was listening to a presentation by 3 of my peers, one who runs a food bank and 2 who run organizations like ours. And all of them had the same story, that the need is at record highs, and it continues to grow. And, it's not surprising considering the scarcity of housing in Orange County and the cost of housing in Orange County, but it is concerning, right? And so I think that one of the things I've learned is that we have to work harder. We have to widen our net. We have to be able to find new and creative ways to solve the problem quickly, and we have to find new and creative funding sources to be able to provide the resources to be able to help these folks and to be able to impact the issue. Because if we don't, it only gets worse. And I think that's probably, I'm sorry that that's one of the main messages, but it is. If we aren't diligent and determined in our efforts to really solve this once and for all, then we will live with it for a long, long time, and it'll probably grow.
Do you think it can be solved?
I wouldn't be here if I didn't. I do think it can be solved. When you think about, you can think about the country, you can think about the region, you can think about Orange County. Orange County, for me, is a very easy thing to conceive, right, to think about. We are a wealthy county. We have some of the highest average incomes. We have some of the most beautiful neighborhoods. We have the resources in this county to solve this problem. We absolutely do. The question is whether we'll apply them effectively and whether we'll apply enough of them. One of the things that we absolutely need to do is to build more housing, and more affordable housing, more multifamily housing. We need to have less scarcity in our housing community so that people can actually find a place. These folks want to find a place to live, right? We have to have enough supply for them to be able to do that. And then we have to have the will and the resources to apply to folks who still can't get there. And like I said, we're very blessed. We live in a bubble. We live in a magical world here in Orange County. Not everybody, but a lot of us. And I put myself in that group. And we have to figure out how to take the time and put the energy against taking care of this once and for all.
So case managers really have challenges.
They do. And they're, we spend a lot of time on personal care and just, hopefully enough, because they take on a heavy burden. They take on the burden of these folks who have had this, who have lived with this for some amount of time. They truly are the heroes in the story, right? But it's also, you were asking about how our volunteers feel. I would, I can speak for our case managers in that they go home tired, but they go home content that they've made a difference.
So the website to get more information about this organization is?
spinoc.org. That's spinoc.org. The donate button's right at the front there. Also, the website will take you through how you can help, whether you want to volunteer, whether you want to donate, whether you want to contribute. There's a lot of ways that you can help.
Thank you, SPIN OC Executive Director David Wetzel, for being on Impact OC. SPIN stands for Serving People in Need. I also thank everyone for tuning in. I'm OC Talk Radio Public Affairs Director Dawn Camber. Have an impactful day.
You've been listening to Impact OC, the only program showcasing the people and organizations shaping our community. Right here on Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio.